Welcome to Change Your Life. My name is Dwight Gillespie. I'm your host, and today we have a special guest, Anthony Blas. Anthony is an artist out of Greenpoint, Brooklyn. He's a friend of mine. We know each other. We've known each other for a couple of years, right, Anthony?
About eight, I would say.
Is it that long?
8, 9 years, yeah.
One of us is getting old. I'm not sure which one it is.
Some grays here.
Yeah.
Some grays here.
I got all gray now. But Anthony and I have become friends over the years, and one of the things that we bonded over was children. You know, Anthony's got a beautiful young child, and he was going through some stuff not too long ago, and we started talking about that. You know, about I'm slumping, Walter. I'm slumping. We got Walter over there, of course. And we started talking about the difficulty of being a father today, you know, and the trials and tribulations that we can go through, especially being a single father, you know. You know, many of you know my story. You watch the videos and everything. You know, my son passed away some time ago. But it was something that Anthony and I were able to bond over. And I know that I've done videos on this, on the importance of fatherhood. And it's something that I feel that men have been relegated to a subservient level when it comes to this. We've been deemed unimportant. And one of the things that I talk about is the fact that women are so surprised when they tell men, we don't need you. Whoa, you're just a sperm donor. And then when we leave, they're like, well, what a piece of shit you are. You know, we'll bleep that, right, Walter?
It's funny because if you look at what are those those pretty women that do the makeup and all that.
Kardashians?
The Kardashians. The younger brother had a child with that woman, Black China, I think her name was. And recently she put out a thing, I do everything for my kids. She has children with 2 famous people. And they chimed in on that tweet, I think it was. And they were like, I pay $30,000 a year for her school. I pay $28,000 for this one's school. How'd you get $2,000 off? So that right then and there, you have 2 fathers that are being isolated out of the raising of this child.
Right.
That it was combined that this woman has to spend almost $60,000 on education.
Right.
I mean, that's a significant amount of money that the father's committing to education.
Yeah.
But this, you know, throughout the research that I've done, it's all about my word. The word of female to society is more accepted. Like, I have to prove myself.
Yeah.
If I have to come up with the fancy, let's take a step back in the dating experience, trying to get a woman that I would consider my equal or someone that I would consider value. I would have to pull up in a car. I can't just tell you, oh, yeah, I drive from Mercedes, I got this in the bank. Prove it. But a woman could be like, I'm this, I'm that. I don't take this, I don't take that. And it has to be believed. And right then and there, you're in a failing situation.
But I also think that that's partially our fault, though, as men, because we want to have sex. We want to have sex, so we're willing to listen to whatever crap comes down the line, and we don't want to wait, right? And I do this on the other podcast too, because we do this is the Change Your Life, which, you know, we try to give some people some important information on life and values and things like this. The other one we do is called Trash TV Review, where we talk about people who jump into bed with people that they don't know, having babies with people they don't know, making these lifelong commitments with people that they don't really know. And we as men, we're willing to listen to a woman say, I'm this, I'm that, and not have to prove it to us.
This is a tough situation because from my research from around the 1960s, divorce and the family court system, legislation really changed around that time where the woman would get the child. So now the women these children, whether it be male or female, are raised in a certain situation where there is no concept of what a man would be. And now we're talking about 3-4 generations in.
But explain, what do you mean? Like what a man is supposed to be? Or I think the concept has been watered down since then.
Well, look at it. 87% of the prison population comes from
single parent households.
Households.
Yeah. Well, it was 1962. Daniel Patrick Moynihan wrote a groundbreaking article about African-American homes. Almost 25% of African-American children at that time were being born into single-parent households. And now it's over 70% and like 40% of Caucasian children. Like it's an epidemic. And like you said, when your child is being born, and regardless of what they say, right? But I think that one of the problems with this, and again, it comes back to that idea that we don't need you. We don't need you. You can. Oh, you're just a sperm donor.
You mentioned briefly about it, like, well, it was brought up briefly that what the father does behind the scenes when it comes to the financials,
Right.
that's never brought to their attention. Like, I mean, this is just my opinion. I can't voice for every single parent, whether it be the mother or the father, that has to be responsible for the finances of that upbringing. But is it really brought to the child's attention that you got these shoes, you're going to this school, we're living in this household because of a 17% untaxed income that's coming from the other parent?
Right. Yeah. But you're not. But think of, you see, but that's a money thing. I look at it like I look at you with your son, and I know how you are with your son. The finances are just a small part of what you do.
Of course.
My point is that raising children are being raised in single parent households, mostly by women. And when you have a man that's being raised by a woman, and I see this as a huge problem, and I really do, they're being raised to be what this woman thinks a man should be.
Correct.
Now, number one, she doesn't really know what a man should be, because if she knew what a man was supposed to be, she wouldn't have had sex with that guy that she hates so much now.
Correct.
So obviously she doesn't have a good track on what men are supposed to be. Women have this idealized, and this is one of my favorite sayings. I got this at one of my European meetings. So you think you got a knight in shining armor, but what you have is a tin foil, like you don't know what a man is supposed to be. So they're raising these boys to not be men, to be this idealized version that you can't be. You can't be,
I just want to bring up a comical point that you just made about chivalry. I think was the term what it was called. If women are like, a man has to approach me today, and men I don't approach men. 300 years ago, do you know how a woman got a man? She would take her silk little thing, drop it on the floor in front of him, and the man would be a gentleman, pick it up, and that's how they would start a conversation.
Yeah. Right.
Our genetics in every animal kingdom is the woman choosing the man. It's not the man choosing the woman.
Well, that's why peacocks, the male has the plumage and all this other stuff.
And then we had conversation on this specific subject where I wasn't the full me. I was still working on becoming the best Anthony I could have been.
This is one of the things that really, Anthony said this to me one day. We were talking about dating and how difficult dating can be. And now, obviously, Anthony's a lot younger than I am. But it's the same kind of thing, the same mindset. We're dealing with the same type of woman, like this uber aggressive, new wave feminist. We're here in New York City, and these are the kind of women, right, that we can run into here. And Anthony said something. He said, I'm not looking for a woman for the man I am now. I'm looking for a woman for the man I plan on becoming.
I still have developing.
I said, dude,
points.
That was...
I want to be the best version.
Keep swearing. We saw Walter's floor. He got me loaded up on caffeine before we came.
I want to be the best version of me, not just for me, of course, for me.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing when I'm able to view it in that present moment. But to have a female, a companion, see the same values instead of the same negative, and her developing her own values to match my values.
Well, you said that
that's
before,
a really
right?
good version of a relationship.
Well, you were talking about composition before in art, right? And now Megan, right?
Yes.
And she's an artist as well.
At the beginning of our relationship, before things really started getting serious, we read some books on the two Jordan Peterson 12 Rules of Life books, and we were able to have like our own little personal book study about it. And we took
But you had made a comment about composition.
Yeah, so
that you have a lot of these same ideals and things.
We watched videos on composition of art values, what we consider it, and she was able to understand what I like in composition. So now I have someone that we look at pictures and ideas of what I would paint. And ever since we applied this, I'm producing some really cool art.
But the whole thing about this is that you have common interests.
Correct.
And you get to know this person before you make these, part of being in a relationship and part of being with a woman. And this is part of what we were talking about, this thing where it's not really a partnership anymore. It's what's in it for me. And I find that a lot of people are like that, like what's in this for me. But another point of this was like, making myself available to a potential mate, right? What do I expect? And that's, I guess, what I was really getting at with that, like, is to do these things in Congress with one another so that you're on the same page. I lost a lot of weight, right? Because I don't like fat chicks, you know? And how can I expect to get somebody, and it goes with what you're saying, I want a woman for the man I want to become,
Yeah.
right? And not necessarily for the one I am. So I have to be willing to make the effort to give what I expect to get. And
That's a huge point.
Right.
You remember that movie As Good as It Gets with Jack
one
Nicholson?
of my favorite
One of the
movies of all
best
time.
one of the
Yeah,
best scenes
yeah.
is when she's like, I need a compliment right now, or I'm walking out.
Right.
And he's like, a few years
Right,
ago,
right.
the
Yeah,
doctor
yeah,
gave me
yeah.
these pills, and I didn't really like them, but when I met you, I started taking them. She's sitting there like, I don't understand what you're trying to get. And he says, ever since I met you, I wanted to be a better
Right.
person.
Yeah.
And in
You
that,
make me want to be a better
he's
man.
still-
That's
yeah.
a great line.
yeah, and in that, she realized it wasn't his quirkiness, his craziness, and all that. Is that he's doing everything possible to be the best version of
Right.
himself for me.
Right.
And when you have two people that are in sync with that,
Right.
beautiful things happen.
But it's very rare as well.
I've
Yeah.
only seen 2 or 3 relationships like that.
You know, well, you said, I have to prove my bank account. I got to all this. It's very difficult for me at this point in my life. I just turned 60, and it's very difficult for me to put myself out there for somebody at this age. I have to be honest with you. I'm very set in my ways, and it's not that I'm not willing to negotiate. That I'm not willing to compromise. Like, I'm willing to do all these things. However, I'm not willing to put up with bullshit. I'm a straight shooter. I'm a loyal individual and things like this, and I don't go with that. I'm talking to this guy, that guy, and everything, and
that drama
having
forward, man.
quick sex with people. Like, I'm not into hookups anymore. I'm well past that hookup stage of my life.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about that. Like, I don't need that from somebody. That's not what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is a partner. Kevin Samuels talked about it all the time, right? With these women, Kevin Samuels, right? And I know some of my, Kevin Samuels, like these women, Kevin Samuels. But he made the great point was like, look, he would ask these women, well, what are you looking for? I deserve a 10. Yeah, okay. Tell me who you are. How tall are you? I'm 5'2". How much do you weigh? 185 pounds. Okay. How many children? 3. By how many men? 2. Well, you're like a 4. Like, do you have a job? Well, kind of. Well, what do you mean kind of? Like, welfare's not a job. See? I see. It's
Welfare's
Anthony's
not a
fault. He's
job.
bringing his head.
Welfare's not a job.
Right.
Well, this is the situation. I went to school. I was in Ivan's class, and my cousin Michelle was a year younger than me in his sister's class. There were 8 siblings. She ended up having 3 children with one guy who was massively abusive, and he left her.
Right.
And she was stuck in a very dire situation where she either did the whole welfare thingy,
Right.
or she really had to become both parents and a role model figure. And she was in the news 2 years ago because she learned how the whole family was autistic, and she learned how to stitch these beautiful leather like purses, and she was
Right.
selling them. And she went to school for marketing, and she basically made her own business, raising 3 children and dealing with the psychological perspective of getting out and finding who she is after an abusive relationship.
Right. But she did that.
That those stories should be exploited tenfold. It should define your life.
I don't have, and people think
should
I have a problem with like working women, and I have my ex-wife, and to me, she's a great example of a real mom. She was a professional woman, master's degree, the whole 9 yards, St. John's University, went to a good school and everything. Me, I was just a working schlep. I barely made it to high school, right? But here we were, like, we got together, we met, we got married first and then decided to have a child, right? After we were married, or actually we got married to have a child was what it was. She wanted to be married before we had a kid. But we had been together for several years before all that transpired. She's pregnant, right? And I'm a working woman. She worked for WFAN. She had a great job. She should get me tickets and everything. Anyway, she's pregnant, giving me this whole speech about, I'm a working woman, and after I have the baby, I'm going right back to work. I'm like, whatever you want to do, baby, whatever makes you happy. She spits the kid out. Yeah. And immediately, she's, I'm out of the home with my baby.
I
Fine. She still wants to work. I don't care. It doesn't bother me if a woman made more money than me. It doesn't bother me if a woman wants to work. Like, none of that. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think that we have defined roles as men and women in society, and a woman, and she did it. And this is what she did when she said, and I remember this because she's Hispanic, she's Puerto Rican, right? She said, I remember when she told me the day she told me she didn't want to work at the fan anymore. It was like one of the worst days of my life, and it wasn't because she was leaving. I wasn't going to get sports tickets. I free Mets, Yankees, anything that WFAN covered, I would be able to get into because I was her husband. Anyway. She says, and plus she made really good money. She's making good money. She worked for Mark Chernoff, who at the time was the program director for WFAN. And so she's making good money. She's got a lot of contacts, everything. She says, I want to get a job giving back to my people. And I said, you people have no money. Like, what are you going to do?
Full-time job.
I'm not knocking, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Puerto Ricans, right? I'm saying, like, I live in New York City. I'm like, baby, like, what are you going to do? And she said, her reasoning was sound. Like, she could have started with this, by the way, was, she said, I want to work school hours. I want to be home for my child. See, because she understood. The funny thing to me is that, in all of this, and we've talked about this on this channel before, like, I've always believed that women are the stronger sex. That women had the most important job in society, and that is raising our progeny, is raising the next generation. And you can see how messed up our society is by these boys who think they're girls and girls who think they're boys. And why? Because there's nobody raising them. Like, women had the most important job, and they think that, we're not equal with men because it's money. It's all material. You said, the girl wants the car, she wants the bank account, she wants this, right? It's all material. It's all about material. And you men make more money than we do, so therefore we're not equal.
Well, it's the effort of getting it there. Do you want to do it yourself, or do you, like, one of the biggest things that me and my girlfriend are doing right now is she's basically the production part of what I'm trying to do in my art. I'm not keeping her out of it. I want her to be a part of it.
Right.
And in that, I feel like there's going to be a lot of experiences, and not just the lucrative types, but like, building something together is a very strong thing to do with someone.
It's important.
Two of the biggest things I feel to develop a relationship is learning something with someone. You learn how the person thinks. You watch someone try and carve out a pumpkin. You understand how much effort they put into it. You understand if they like to joke about it, or you start to understand how the person thinks. So whether it's a romantic relationship, or father-son, or any type of relation, like me and you we're learning how we think, and we're going to high-five each other when this is over, and be like, that was great.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's a learning process. There's a learning process for any type of relationship. And when you're able to realize how that person learns,
but my thing today with relationships is people aren't willing to do it.
No,
it's a very short attention span.
Not when it's materialistic.
And I talk about this on the other channel a lot.
Thing.
Right?
What do you have to give to me?
It's people think, especially, and I'm going to say especially women, people think it's forever, at least for today. It's forever, at least for today. And if I get bored with you, if I want to trade up, and that's another thing, is all this trading up that goes on and everything like that. I'll give you an example. There's a woman I was talking to, and I talked to her, and yeah. We went out, we had a good time, and she said, call me. I said, I'll call you over the weekend. So I called her. It was Sunday night. I called her. She said, I'm thinking about you all weekend. It's great. Yeah, So, yeah. And by the end of the conversation, she had a boyfriend. She's talking about her boyfriend. Wait. I'm too old for that. I don't need that, right? So anyway, she tells me 2-3 weeks later, go on. She says, we broke up. So, okay, cool. I says, well, let's go out. Now, she's in a particular part of town and I don't want to mention it, but she's in a particular part of town. They got nice restaurants and everything, and it overlooks Manhattan. It's nice. It's kind of romantic, right? So, oh no, I can't. No, I don't like going to that area. Well, you live in that area. Yeah, no, it's a dangerous area. I don't. It's a dangerous area. And so I know the boy. There was no breakup, right? There was
Man.
this is a person who's looking to trade up, and she wants to see if the goods are worth it. Is this worth trading up? And yeah, you don't want to be with somebody like that because you want to know something. People who are looking to trade up are always looking to trade up. Yeah.
There was what was that movie? A Hall Pass, where they had that friend from out of town.
He's a movie guy.
Yeah, where they had that friend from out of town. They threw that fantastic party, and the way he explained it is a winner knows when to walk away from the table when they won something.
Yeah.
A loser, when they win something, they think they could win something better.
Right.
So when you get something, you're in a very there's a big road there. Do I walk away with this, or is there something else out there? You, my friend, ran into a loser.
Well, no, but my thing is that it's filled with them.
Oh no!
And filtering all that out.
Western culture is producing it.
Right.
You
Because
must get
right.
Do you remember Dr. Dre 2001? Don't get a man with a bus pass. Like this is what's being fed.
But now, you see, now here's the other side of that. Is just I don't see anything wrong with not getting the guy with the bus pass. But the thing is that when you get the good guy, is to keep the good guy. And this comes back to the thing I was saying about fatherhood.
The thing with getting the good guy for a female, what I think from a female is if he's already like this without me in his life, how much better would he be with me in his life? But then that's what a female is for. That's why a female and what I feel when you say is the strongest sex, because they're supposed to produce that extra hurrah behind the man. There's this old saying, behind every great man's a great woman.
Right.
That's where it comes from. If this man by himself is this type of person,
that'll get us canceled right there. Just saying that now.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not saying. Listen, I work in elevators. I've seen a female hand a male a toolbox and him just boom. Like I'm not trying to be in the physical aspect or anything like that. I was raised by a mom, a single mom. Well, my stepfather was there too, but I experienced the struggles of a single mom as well. And don't get it twisted. What like you said, using a kid as a shield is not the way to go.
We say is using it as a weapon.
Weapon shield. I'm not a child production.
This is where I start with fatherhood.
Yeah,
right? We talk about fatherhood and women who complain that he was a sperm, he left. Men are nothing. It's so common, and I see so often where good men father children, and it doesn't work out, and they want to be in that kid's life, and how difficult that woman will make it for that man to be in that child's life.
On this journey through my fatherhood, the last 2.5 years, where my son was given to me in a situation where I was really able to get into being a father, I've come across so many fathers and stories that were just miraculous. And I call it coincidence is God's way of being anonymous. Before I even thought about having a kid, I seen this kid raised from 10 years old. I played softball and worked with this one guy who raised his son, who was an honor student, who works with him now.
Right.
They play softball together. They go on trips together. The kid was had 98 average in one of the biggest Catholic high schools. And he was given the freedom to do what he wanted as a result of it. And what a beautiful relationship that I was able to witness how much benefit a child can get from those types of relationships.
Listen, you said it before, a child optimally needs two parents. And you can't get away from the numbers. Like the numbers don't lie. Children who are born into single parent households have a much greater propensity. It's not a little bit. It's a much greater propensity to not graduate high school, to be addicted to drugs, to not be able to be employed, to go to prison.
Yes,
all of these things are a direct result of that. And people, systemic racism and all that stuff. Maybe there's but it has more to do with the household and how that 100%. Child is raised. Because I don't care how you are. Look, and we talk about this here a lot. And if you can find somebody who looks like you, who has your accent, who has your sexual proclivities, right? Your gender, whatever, right? And they're successful. That means you can be successful too. It means that if you work and you persevere and you can do this, right? But there are certain things that will happen that will put you behind the eight ball. And the number one thing is a single parent household, and excluding the father from that child's life. And to me, I see it as almost criminal, almost criminal. And there's another side to it too, because I had a friend as well who I remember him telling me, and he always made that, I want to be in my child's life. I want to be in my child's life, because this is the other side of it. And I was like, okay, my ex is she's got all these guys coming in. And I said, well, why don't you sue for custody? I mean, if it's that, what am I going to do with the kid? What? That's like,
People have this, and this is where the flip side of the coin, the duality of the situation. You don't want to coddle the kid. Like, who could protect the kid more? No, who could teach the kid to deal with life on life's terms in the best scenario?
well, that's the problem with society right now is that it's all coddling.
Yeah, well, that leaves, like, I love how Jordan Peterson puts it. Like, a lot of what we're seeing with this, I'm a wolf, I'm this, I'm that, and like not being able to verbalize who or define yourself comes from the lack of practicing an imagination as a child.
But now the parents take the kid's imagination and say, that's reality. You are a girl.
Well, no, that's the thing. You took the parent out of it when it was supposed to be. You told the kid, no, don't do that. You're not going to be this as a child. Now there's no boundaries. There's no enforcement of what the line should be. You're an adult practicing being a wolf. There's no one telling you shouldn't really do that. Yeah. But as a 5-year-old, if you went around dancing talking as a wolf, once you start eating out of the doggy bowl, listen, Ryan, I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. Like, you had those boundaries.
And there was an inability to say no. And I remember that was a thing, actually, when I was younger, was they had this whole movement where you don't say no to your child.
Yeah, no.
How the hell do you raise a kid and not say no?
No, because guess what? When he's an adult.
And the kid's up on the roof ice skating. That's a great idea. Yeah. Don't say no. And I tell the story about my mother, when I remember I was in third grade, smoked cigarettes, right? And in third grade, they came in and told us, like, if you keep smoking, you're going to stunt your growth. And I wanted to be Walt Frazier. Oh. I'm not talking about right. I wanted to be Walt Frazier.
Sorry, like,
sorry, Walter.
You made me.
But I wanted to be Walt Frazier, and they came in. They said, "Well, if you smoke cigarettes, it's going to stunt your growth." And I remember going out at recess in third grade, and I used to keep the cigarettes right down my pants, throwing them away because I'm going to be Walt Frazier. I go home, I tell my mother, "I'm going to be Walt Frazier," right? She says, "No, you're not." Right? She said, "You're never going to be 6'4". And I remember thinking to myself, you don't know. I'm going to grow. I can grow as tall as I want. Just quit smoking. Couldn't tell my mother that. She says, "And you're never going to be black." And that was it right there. Like, really? I'm never, like, it's like this, like Steve Martin in The Jerk. You mean I'm going to stay this color, right? So I'm not going to be 6'4". I'm never going to be black. I might as well smoke, But she was right. Like, so what could I think that I'm gonna, I'm gonna become a black man, a 6'4" black man and play basketball for the New York Knicks. So but that reality, like, that's the whole thing, and not saying no and not keeping score either. I saw that as a huge problem. We don't keep score.
Look,
Johnny can't fail. It makes him feel so bad.
No, it's not about failing. It's about getting up. If I was judged for the things that I've done in life,
right?
There would be such ongoing consequences. I would.
Well, there are, Anthony. We could tell people how we met.
Yeah, well, no, but
ongoing consequences.
Listen. I feel that the things I did in life made me realize how important it is to be the Anthony I am today.
Right. Here's the thing I'm talking about, right? Like, can you imagine if the things you thought at 14, you still thought today? Like, here we go, and not to get controversial, right? But all this gender reassignment and all this other thing, and it's like some 14-year-old knows. Can you imagine if the ideas you had about yourself and what you would be doing at 14 years old, you made permanent changes to your life, irreversible changes to your life at 14?
Well,
and people say, "Well, I know who I am." You're 14.
At 14,
you don't.
I had who I were represented as my father figure in my life. He actually passed away at around 15, 16 years old. My stepfather's father, right. Grandpa Eddie. And this is a man that took me in, not as blood, and really trained me, not trained me, but represented me as, that's my grandson.
Right.
He was at every one of my baseball games. I met Mr. Olympia. He went out of his way to go bring me to meet Mr. Olympia. And he was able to feed me those things. So as one of the representable father figures in my life, losing him destroyed me.
Right.
And losing of that and it set me on a path to where we met.
Right.
and dealing with that.
Well, Anthony says he doesn't mind me. We met in recovery.
Yeah, I don't
in a
mind.
12-step program like 8 years ago. So
it's a beautiful thing, I think.
But my point is that at 14, you had certain ideas about life that were just, you didn't have any experience. You had no experience. You had no idea, no notion.
I had a father figure that was there to say that you're good at this. Let's train in this. You're not so good at this.
Right.
Leave that behind. Let's see what you can go with this.
Yeah.
I always go back to Conan the Barbarian, 1982's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's movie day.
But yeah, listen, there's a lot of things. I've learned to think in a certain way where these stories represent more than just Hollywood freaking.
Conan.
He's a little boy. His father gets killed. His sword gets taken. His village gets raided. He gets enslaved. James Earl Jones, the demigod, serpent god. At the end of the movie, when Conan builds himself up to be this, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold plays Conan. But he learned philosophy. He learned from sword masters. He
learned how to be a man.
Correct. And James Earl Jones says something to him which messed me up. Before recovery and after learning a thing or two in recovery. He says, along the lines of like, who's your father if it's not me? Who gave you the desire to be who you are? If I didn't do the things that I did to you, you would never be this person. And once I'm gone, this is as far as you go. Right. The point is that a father figure really teaches you how to deal with life's pains and to perceive it in a certain way.
But my problem is today is that you don't have enough men who know what it means to be a man.
We're 4 or 5 generations in of the single mom ideology that's litigated through the courts. You don't know that it's very hard to find that.
Well, I told Walter doesn't drive, but I tell him that I can spot a guy on the road who's been taught to drive by his mother. I can tell if his mother taught him to drive or his father taught him to drive, by the way he drives.
Oh, yeah.
By sitting in the left-hand lane going 5 miles an hour. And I'm not knocking female drivers.
Those are materialistic things. A lot of what made me today
that's not material. I think that's
if you don't know how to drive, you're going to have a serious insurance policy.
Well, but that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about security. And I know in more than one instance, I remember my ex-father-in-law talking about wanting to buy a building in Brooklyn back in the day, and they had just enough money to do it. And if he worked hard, like he worked for the post office, he could do it. And it was an 8 units building in Brooklyn. And he would, today it's worth $1 million, and I should have done it. And she talked him out of it. And why? Because of security. Because she wasn't willing to take. Well, it's a very female thing.
Well, yeah.
I don't want to take that risk. It's a very male thing. Women say, well, there's more men who are CEOs. Well, that's because more men are willing to take risks. More men are willing to work longer hours. More men are willing to sacrifice their family because a man's job has always been to provide. And what that provision means, and some men take it to an extreme, right?
What scared the shit out of me one day was going to dinner with a bunch of elevator guys, and all they wanted to talk about at a dinner was elevators, and it scared the shit out of me. It scared the shit out of me. How much we don't realize how much we sacrifice in a 9 to 5. A man is majority 9 to 5 job.
Right.
And without a good line of communication, your partner realize the sacrifices that need to be. And today, they're allowed to take advantage of it, unfortunately, which is scary.
Well, listen, and Jordan Peterson, you talk about Jordan Peterson, I'm a huge fan as well. And one of the things that he taught, and I love it, I've never heard a woman complain that there aren't enough female bricklayers.
Well,
you want to make more money, do what men do.
I would love to see a statistic between how many bricks a bricklayer lays when he's got a good wife at home compared to how many bricks a bricklayer lays when he's getting verbally and financially abused at home. I would love to see that statistic.
I just want to see a female bricklayer.
But that's the thing. Behind every good man is a good woman. So technically, if he's got a good woman behind him, she is laying those bricks.
That's not happening anymore either, though. There aren't a lot of them out there. There aren't a lot of women who, and this is what they call the radical feminine. And again, I don't have a problem with women wanting to do this. Listen. I worked for the phone company. I had a dirty job. I climbed telephone poles. I went down into dirty basements. I did all that kind of. And there were women that I worked with women. All right,
agree.
And some of them, and I'll even Kim Brown, great worker. This woman, I don't know where she is now, or she's around.
She's on the telephone pole.
Let me tell you something. That woman worked as hard as any man I knew. All right, Not too many others.
No,
You
no.
know, not too many. I remember one particular. I won't say her name because anyway, wanted me to put her extension ladder back on the truck. Why? Well, it's too heavy for me. I said, well, then what are you doing in this job? This is why it's a man's job. Part of the job, right? You say you can do the same job I can do, right? You're just as physically adept as I am. Put the ladder back up. You know, no. And I refused to do it. And she thought I was I said, we're getting the same exact money. I go into the more dangerous, and it was true. And they did it without even thinking about it. The men went into the more dangerous neighborhoods. We did the more dangerous jobs. We lifted the ladders more. We did all of this stuff. But wait a second. We're making the same exact money. Same benefits, same money, same everything, right? Equality. And I'm all for it. Like I said, I work with the woman. She did the job. She never asked me to lift the ladder for her. She was working Bed-Stuy with me, right next to me. She did it, never complained, never did anything. She went out, did her job. Listen, she was real cool people. She was real cool. I lost touch with her, but real good people, but and had that work ethic, right? But the thing is, you don't hear it because I want to cherry pick. I want to take all the good things, and it's this idea that I have in feminism that it isn't about equality. It's about being better than. It's about getting more than. It's about doing more. I want to take all the good stuff. I want a partnership in the top law firm. I want a partnership in the top doctor's office.
I'm going to quote something I said last night through a very similar conversation. There were societies in history that were female ran.
Yeah.
And the reason why you don't hear about it is because they were wiped off the face of the earth.
Right.
You can't even find a corner tablet of what their society was about, because it just, the ideology cannot it fit in this world.
I think that the reason that we operate the way we do is that men operate more on logic and women operate more on emotion. And when you put those two things together, it works. But it doesn't work on certain levels because it's not supposed to. You can't operate a government on an emotional, and we're seeing that today.
We individual and emotional level.
Well, we're starting to operate our society on emotions, on everybody feeling good. You got to feel good. Oh, God put you in the wrong body, and you just all you have to do. No,
we could go on for days about this one, but
that's just a small part of what I'm talking about. We want everybody to feel good all the time, and that's why we're so super hypersensitive about all the isms, man.
90% of these mass shooters or people that do these insane things, you will find that they acted strictly off of emotion.
It's all emotion, yeah. Well, of course.
A dangerous person skips the thinking process. They go right from emotion to action.
Right.
And that's very dangerous.
Well, we learned that in recovery.
Yes.
Right? Here, I have this, right? You can see, and I've shown it before. This is my pause button. I had a pause button put in because of my impulsive. I have an impulsive nature, and I understand that. And I understand that emotion is something that needs to be controlled. And people, you're not feeling it, but yeah, you can feel your emotions and not have to react on them. And this is I told Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl's big thing was that they can take everything away from you. Viktor Frankl, I told you, he's the guy, in a concentration camp and everything. He says, they can take it, they can take your dignity, they can take your everything. What they can't take is your ability to react. Mm-hmm. Your reaction is what you have left. And your reaction cannot be based on emotion, because emotion will get you killed, right? Emotion will f your life up. I see these kids, right, cutting off their genitalia, taking these puberty blockers and everything like this, and they don't know what the long-term ramifications. Oh, yes, they do. No, they don't. They just started doing it.
If that was the cure to finding out who you were, which is probably the hardest question you ever face in life, we would have been hearing about this practice. We were reading about it from 700-800 years ago. If it was a successful, if that was the way to go.
Right. I want to meet a 14-year-old who's going through puberty, who feels comfortable in their body. Nobody feels comfortable. Nobody feels like, I'm so sexy and all this, unless they're true narcissists.
The last painting I made with the blonde with the arms tied up, as an artist, I could come up with one reason for what this painting is, and then throughout the process, that meaning changes. And I realized as her face was calm, but she was tied up, she was comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's a big thing about life.
That. Yeah, comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, like going back to that whole Conan thing, what it comes down to is I'm not responsible for what life gives me. I'm responsible for what I do with what life gives me.
Right.
Like I could sit here and talk about how my father was all this, my upbringing was all that. Am I really gonna hide behind that? Give up
Well,
the chances of not seeing my son,
right.
give up my relationship, give up all this because I had a poor life?
Right.
No, no. We're gonna take this energy, we're gonna reformulate it,
But
come up with a solution, and
to
apply
kind of
it.
paraphrase what we say in recovery too, right? I'm not responsible for the cards I was dealt. I am responsible for how I play them.
Correct.
Right. Now, I have a responsibility to myself and to society to play the cards I was dealt and to not use them as an excuse. And we get to that in recovery too, right? After a while, and we have all this step work and everything. And there's one, it's called the sixth step. And in the sixth step, we talk about our defects, right? Where we become
Guard your
willing to
grill.
give up our defects, right? And one of the things it says in one of our readings that we do is that we can no longer use this as an excuse. I'm an addict. What do you? I'm an addict. It's not an excuse. I've never used that as an excuse. I don't have the right to go mug people because I have an addiction that I have to feed. I'm a victim of
A
society.
beautiful thing is where these people that obviously we do a lot of meetings that you see in recovery that really stick out. No longer use it as an excuse, but they use it as a reason, a motivation,
Yeah.
a type of to be a person that beyond their wildest dreams.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not just something I want to bury and hide. He was like, no, it's a form of energy that I could go grab and apply it to something else. And
Well, I see in recovery, you see it all the time. People that make excuses though, they don't do the work. But I just don't use. But listen, we got to wrap it up, right? But before I want you to plug your Instagram.
NINO.C.ART. This shirt was made for my cousin. You'll find them on my Instagram page.
Yeah, there
He's
you
another
go.
artist.
There you go. You got that. And this is Anthony's my friend Anthony Blas. Anthony, it was great talking to you today. Hopefully we'll get a lot of feedback. This is Dwight Gillespie. This is Change Your Life. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. By all means, share it with your friends. Comment below. Tell us what we are. I love to hear that kind of right?
Maybe I'll get some good art out of it.
There you go. There you go. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Walter.